Is everything okay at Nintendo? Because after watching that last Nintendo Direct partner showcase, I'm not so sure anymore. And don't get me wrong, I was really excited about this partner showcase. I was, of course, curious to learn more about all the first party games that we're supposed to be getting later this year that don't yet have release dates. But I was also excited to learn more about this next wave of games from third parties. So it's not like I was downplaying the fact that we were getting a partner showcase instead of something that was focused more on first parties. I was genuinely looking forward to this and genuinely curious to kind of learn about this next chapter of the Switch 2. And not only did this direct fail to deliver an impactful new set of games for the Switch 2, it also just fundamentally did not answer a lot of the really basic questions that we've had about the third party games that we already knew about since the system was first revealed months ago. And I'm, of course, talking about Elden Ring and Final Fantasy VII Remake, which are supposedly 2025 games that, as of today, August, still don't have launch dates. And I think the canary in the coal mine for me with this direct was the trailer for Hyrule Warriors, which was, you can debate whether that's a game that even belongs in a partner showcase in the first place. Yes, it's a game from Koei Tecmo, also a Zelda game, but that argument really is neither here or there for this video, so we'll leave it be. But it showed up with a new trailer that not it didn't really give us much new information on the game, but most importantly, after it ended, I was on pins and needles for a launch date, and there was no new information there at all. So it just left me wondering what's going on. And there were some people who have claimed to have knowledge of this direct and what would be in it, and were teasing things ahead of time. They came in afterwards to say, hey, there was stuff that we heard about, multiple things that were going to be in this direct that simply were not there. So it makes you wonder, was this intended to be a much bigger direct that maybe had first party news in addition to third party news and reveals, and was kind of gutted at the last moment? And they just said, well, we're going to roll with what we've got. We're going to make it a partner direct. We're going to make the most of what we have because we need to support these partners and help them announce these games. It's just not passing the sniff test for me, and it all seems a little suspicious. And again, having worked there, it gives me certain feelings that things are not going as smoothly as maybe Nintendo would want. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I think there's a lot of concern. And I think, frankly, they're trying to put on a brave face and carry on as if everything's okay, while at the same time really trying to get a handle on what's happening with these games that are just a little bit slippery in terms of nailing down when they're actually going to come out and having the strong 2025 lineup that they want and need for their new system. So as of today, again, August, we have 5 major Switch 2 games: Elden Ring, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hyrule Warriors, Metroid Prime 4, and Kirby Air Riders. These are all games that are supposedly coming out this year, but they don't have a single launch date between them, all 5 of them. And I'll tell you, that's not normal. And it's making me worried about the state of these games and whether they're all going to make it out this year. And again, we're in August now, and almost every other big video game release that's coming out this year, it's already got a release date. And when we worked at Nintendo, if we would get into July and there was a game that we were supposed to be launching that year and it didn't have a release date, we'd start to get worried, because that meant that a lot of things were going to get put on hold. It meant our jobs. I worked in marketing, people who were supposed to market these games. It was not going to be as smooth as you would want. And now we're taking that scenario times 5 across not only Nintendo, but some other companies, some big partners on their side as well. And it's just not how you want these things to go. And look, there's a reason. Obviously, E3 is no more. There's a reason that E3 used to happen in June. June is just a good time to announce games, announce your release date, and start to kind of move on to that phase where you're supporting your game that's about to come out, whether it's coming out later in the summer, it's coming out deeper into the holidays. it gives everybody a chance to get started and get focused on that and helping you to have the best launch that you possibly can. Because, and maybe this is probably going to be surprising to some people, the holidays and when people actually start shopping for the holidays starts in September, which is, again, it's in a month. Um, most people think like, well, there's Black Friday, that's when a lot of the shopping happens. But this is something that we would get research on all the time. Was no, more and more people are moving up when they start to think about what they're going to buy in the holidays. They might buy something and sock it away for when the holiday actually comes around. But all that activity happens a lot in September. And as of now, again, the only game that's coming out between now and the end of the year, big game, from a first party perspective, that we really have a solid plan for with a nailed down release date, is Pokemon Legends ZA. So props to them, props to Pokemon for having their act together and having this game ready. And again, there's just, when you work at a publisher or a developer, there's not a lot that you can do to prepare to release your game that's that big and that complex when you don't have a release date. You can't have your conversations with retailers, and all these games are going to have some sort of a physical presence at retail. You can't get your big marketing plan going. There's some parts of your marketing plan that you can't even make, because you really do need to know when the thing's coming out and when your activity should happen. And you're nervous to say a lot to your fans because you know that they're all just going to come back and say, great, when is this thing coming out again? And that makes you look bad when you don't have a date. And then people start asking questions and people start getting worried, like what's happening right now. It all just speaks to a surprising amount of disarray at Nintendo, which was so on top of things at all times when we worked there. And I think we also all remember, just as fans, support for Nintendo Switch slowed down after 2023. We had Tears of the Kingdom, we had Super Mario Wonder, and then from there, the Switch kind of moved into a different phase of existence where we were still getting games pretty regularly, but they were smaller games and they weren't from the big teams. And I think it was just assumed, all right, the big guns have moved on to the next system and the Switch 2. So we were cool with that because it meant that when the new system was out, those games would be ready, or those games would be close, and we'd have some really cool stuff to play. And we've had Mario Kart, which I think we all have. We're thinking positive thoughts about Mario Kart as we go into the future. We're playing Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is incredible, absolute game of the year caliber game. But there's a lot of other stuff that's just up in the air, and I don't think that's how we all thought this was going to be going. I think at the same time, we also remember the incredible first year of 2017 that the Nintendo Switch had. And it was just hit after hit after hit all year long. And it just solidified that system as a must-have for so many people. And it just set the foundation for the incredible generation that we were about to have. And there's just a realization that, yeah, things are different now with the Switch 2, probably for a lot of different reasons, but we're probably not going to we're not looking at a repeat of 2017 here. It's going to be a little bit different. So what, the logical question is, well, what's going on? And there's a couple things that could be going on. It's very possible that there's just one of these games, the first party games, obviously, Elden Ring and Final Fantasy, those for Bandai Namco and Square to figure out. First party, it's very possible that one game is holding everything up. The people who plot out the release dates for everything may want to get a clear lay of the land and see, like, well, when are these three games actually launching, and what is the best time strategically for us to pace those out? We can't really make that decision without knowing about all three. So maybe maybe two of these are mostly done, and maybe one is in a state where it needs a bit more help, or there's a bit more uncertainty. We don't know. We've heard things about Metroid Prime 4 possibly not quite being finished yet. But at the same time, if you look at the tweets from Mr. Sakurai about Kirby Air Riders, it sounds like that's, a bit more of a challenging development than maybe he and Nintendo anticipated as well. So it's hard to say if there's that situation of a single game or multiple games, but it's definitely true that a single game can hold everything up because they're looking at this of like, all right, this is the whole 2025 lineup. It's not, we're not playing whack-a-mole one game at a time. We're trying to piece together a flow that we can support and that our fans can get on board with, and is going to push us into 2026 and through the holidays with a lot of momentum. That's a word that Nintendo used to love and still uses now. For me personally, it's okay. Like, there will be games to play. I got a backlog. Some of these smaller games I'm very interested in. There were things in the partner showcase that I was, very into, like Monster Hunter Stories. That's not coming out until next year. The Square Enix stuff looked cool, but the concern goes beyond that. It's that Nintendo is having trouble, and the partners are having trouble getting games finished on this new platform when they've already communicated that they're launching this year. And again, that's not the Nintendo that I know, that is usually so on top of the dev teams and their cycles and these dates. And even to the extent that everybody's heard this story of like, oh, Nintendo finishes these games, they sock them away for a rainy day. Like, Nintendo's playing 4D chess. The rest of the industry is just playing checkers. Like, that just doesn't seem to be the case right now with the Switch 2. Like, they're living like day to day. Like, we got to get these games done. We got to get these games out. That kind of longer pacing, that longer sense of planning ahead, they're trying to catch up to that right now, which is not where they want to be. And so that's Nintendo. When it comes to third parties, it just feels like it's becoming more and more clear, this issue of the dev kits not being made available and in enough quantity in a time frame that let them put their best foot forward. And that would explain why so many of these games that we're seeing are ports. It's easier for them to get these games done versus something that is completely original. And even still now, we see a lot of developers talking about their struggles in getting dev kits. Developers who want to make games for the Switch 2 are being turned away when they're requesting dev kits. They're being told to come back later. So that's a challenge in terms of building up your library, in terms of getting all the development partners on board who want to realize all of their ambitions for this new system in the way that they want. It just sounds like that's not really something that's able to happen. And if you watched our predictions video for this direct, we talked about Xbox, and we sort of asked ourselves the question of, well, it's an interesting case, Xbox. Did they get dev kits early, or in which case Nintendo would see them as a strong partner for the Switch 2, or the other case was they kind of looked at them as more of a competitor than a partner. And they got a little bit nervous about putting this in Xbox's hands, knowing Xbox has had these aspirations about getting into handhelds, and would that prevent them from giving them the hardware they need to make games? And the fact that we have not seen any Xbox games yet, despite the fact that Phil Spencer is getting out there pretty often, proactively mentioning he's a fan of Nintendo, he's a fan of the Switch 2, he wants to put Xbox games on the Switch 2. We don't know, but it just feels like the pieces are coming together. Yeah, I'm not sure Xbox was super on wave one of dev kits going out, and they're also in this process of trying to catch up. And it makes you wonder, like, when we finally do get the Xbox support, what is it going to be? What is that going to look like? And is it going to be, to the level that makes fans happy of what Xbox is putting on the Switch 2? Does it make Xbox happy with the way that they're able to get their games on the Switch 2? Just kind of makes you think. And they're just kind of an interesting example as far as this rollout of dev kits. Because if you're in the position of Nintendo, you have a limited number of dev kits that you can give out in advance. You really do need to make the right decisions in who you are going to give them to. You need to think, who are the partners who are going to give me the best support? Who are the partners that can make things in the time frame that I need games to come out? And who are the partners that we can wait on and that we can have them come in later and that don't need this stuff right away? And I think it's a fair question to ask right now. Did Nintendo make the right decision with every dev kit that they sent out? We'll never know the answer, but I think it's a very fair question to ask. And more than ever, making these games, development takes a lot of time. So I'm feeling like we might have to wait to see what third parties can really truly do on the Switch 2. Which, if that's the case, that's kind of too bad, because that's something that I was excited to see. One other thing that gives me kind of concern, again, not so much for myself, but just for the platform in general, is I'm wrapping up Donkey Kong Bonanza. I beat the game earlier this week. Amazing game. I'm going back. I'm getting all these bananas. I'm doing stuff. Usually, at the time that I'm wrapping up a game, I have in mind already, like, yeah, I know what I'm going to be playing next, and I'm getting excited to play that. I honestly don't know what I'm playing next on my Switch 2. I have curiosity about Dragon Drive. I don't think Dragon Drive is going to be a game that's going to carry me, much past its launch. And that's something that the Switch did almost better than any other console that I can remember. The moment that you were finishing a game, it was ready. Here you go. Here's the next game. Just pick it up and keep playing. And that's why Nintendo was always boasting about these incredible player engagement stats. Look how many people who have a system, how many of these systems are still active. And if the Switch 2 is not going to be able to keep its player base as locked in, it's just a fact that it's going to struggle to be as successful as that system, because we all have just way too many entertainment alternatives these days, too many other things that are competing for our time. So it's like, well, if there's not a game on the Switch 2 that I want to play, it's like, that's fine. I've got other systems. I got movies. I got TV. I have way too many things that I can do with my time. So it's fine for me, but it's not as much of a positive for Nintendo, who wants to make sure that you are never putting that Switch 2 down. Again, as soon as you finish one game, bam, here's the next one. Now you're playing that. And that's what they want you to do for the full life cycle of the system. And again, it's just not happening right now in the same way that it did with the original Nintendo Switch. And again, I get it. Development is hard. And with the Switch 2, Nintendo has entered into this new era of development. All the assets are in 4K. Games are bigger. Games are more expensive. Games are harder to make. And I think that's something that they're grappling with and reckoning with to some degree. And, to look at this from another angle, this could all amount to nothing. They have Nintendo today. They could drop launch dates for all of these games tomorrow. And you could say, well, problem solved. The year is saved. These games all have dates. They align perfectly. Get excited for the rest of 2025. It's going to be awesome. That could absolutely happen. That's why they created Nintendo today. It helps to take the pressure off of any one individual Nintendo Direct. And they've been using that in an interesting way. Like, some days you wake up and it's like, what the heck is this? Wow, that's some big news that I wasn't expecting to get. So they are less predictable in what happens between directs than they have been before. So, I'm not trying to concern troll with this. I'm just kind of giving my reaction as it is today on the first day of August. And also, we all need to remind ourselves, hey, the Switch 2 is the fastest selling game system of all time. The Switch 2 is not doomed. Nintendo is not doomed. But as somebody who used to work there and saw for year after year how efficient Nintendo is, how on top of things Nintendo is, how carefully they manage that full slate of releases, what we saw in this last Direct, it did not pass the sniff test for me. And it made me think very clearly, something fishy is happening over there. So, is it just me? It's very possible it's just me. Or is it seem like something here is off? Please leave a comment. Let's try and get to the bottom of this together. I apologize, Krysta couldn't be here. She's wrapping up her vacation. She will be back next week for all of our videos. So we're going to sign off here. Have a good time, everybody. Bye-bye.